We continue now at the top of Daf Samacham and Aleph and Meseches Gittin. This is Gittin Daf 60a. The Gemara continues the question that was asked from the people of the Galil to Rabbi Chelbo after the Kohen and the Levi, Mi Koren, who reads after them when reading from the Torah. Rashi says, Mi Koren kolomar tiknu shum seder li Yisrael, b'shabbos mishum darchei shalom, meaning to say, the question is, did they institute some kind of order in terms of the order of the Yisraelim that are called up on Shabbos because of darchei shalom as well? Lo have it biyadei, so the Gemara says he didn't have the answer to that question. Also, v'sha'ilei Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha, he came and he asked the question to Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha. Amar lei said to him, Acharei, and after the Kohen and the Levi, Korin Talmidei Chachamim Hamamunin Parnasim Ala Tzibor. We call Talmidei Chachamim who are appointed as leaders over the community. V'Acharei, and after them, Talmidei Chachamim Haruuyim Limnosam Parnasim Ala Tzibor. Then we call Talmidei Chachamim that are fit to be appointed as leaders over the community. V'Acharei, and after that, Bnei Talmidei Chachamim Shavoseyan Mamunin Parnasim Ala Tzibor. We call up the sons of the Talmidei Chachamim whose fathers are appointed as leaders over the community. V'Acharei and Rosh Knasios, and after them we call up the heads of the synagogues. And after them, we call up any individual. And the Gemara continues, Sholchu le b'nei Galil Rabbi Chelbo, the people of Galil sent Rabbi Chelbo the following question, Mahu likros b'chumashim b'beis HaKnesses b'tzibur. What's the halach? Are you allowed to read from a chumash in the Beis HaKnesses in public? And Rashi says, b'chumashim sheyesha kosfen len chamisha chumshin kol chumash echad shalom liatzmo. There are those who write these scrolls where they're only going to have one of the 5 svarim of the Chamisha Chumshei Torah as a scroll. So, for example, just say for Bereshis or just say for Shemos. V'chol Sefreim hayu b'Megillah k'Sefer Torah Shalanu. All of their svarim, all of their books were in a scroll like our Sefer Torah. So again, the question is, what's the halach? Are you allowed to read from such a chumash in shul? Lo have it biyadei, so he didn't have the answer to this question. Also, Shaila Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha, he came, he asked the question to Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha. Lo have it biyadei, he didn't have the answer to the question. Also, Shal Bei Midrasha, so he came to the Beis Medrash and asked the question. Upashtua mehad Amar Rav Shmuel bar Nachmeni Amar Rav Yochanan, and they answered it from the following statement from Rav Shmuel bar Nachmeni. From Rabbi Yochanan, the Meseches Hashas says it should be from Rabbi Yonasan. Sefer Torah shechaser Yuriya Achas. If you have a Sefer Torah that's missing one of the parchments in Korenbo, you can't read from it, and so therefore it would seem to be a chumash as well. Would be a problem. But the Gemara says you can't compare the two cases. Veloi, that's not a good proof. Hasam Mechser b'Milzeh, over there it's missing what it should have. In other words, it's really a full Sefer Torah that's chaser, that's missing something. But over here, when you have a chumash, so lo Mechser b'Milzeh, it's not missing anything. It was made to be just one of the svarim of the chumash, of the Chamisha Chumshei Torah, and so therefore that would be different. That might be good. And the Gemara continues, Rabba v'Rav Yosef da'amri tarvayu, Rabba and Rav Yosef, they both say, Ein koren b'chumashin b'beis HaKnesses mishum kavod tzibur. You're not allowed to read from these chumashim in the Beis HaKnesses due to the honor of the community. And the Gemara continues, V'Rabba v'Rav Yosef da'amri tarvayu, and Rabba and Rav Yosef, they both say, Hai sefer haftarta asr l'mikra bei b'Shabbos. If you have a sefer of haftorahs, it is also to read from that on Shabbos. My time, and what's the reason? Delonitan likosif, because it's not something that should have been written in the first place. Rashi says, Delonitan likosif pachos mi sefer echad shalom liatzmo. In other words, they would have these scrolls of the haftorahs. You're really not supposed to write that, because you shouldn't write less than a complete sefer. It really should be a complete sefer, and therefore, since it's lonitan likosif, therefore you shouldn't read from it on Shabbos. Mar bar Rav Ashi, Amar Mar bar Rav Ashi says, L'tiltulei nami asr, even to move it around on Shabbos is asr. My time, and what's the reason? Dalo chazi l'mikri bei, because if you can't read from it, so you can't move it around either. But the Gemara says veloi, but this is all not true. Shari l'tiltulei v'shari l'mikri bei. It's permitted to move it, and it's permitted to read from it. The Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish ma'ayni b'sifrei de'agadita b'shabsa, because Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, they would read from svarim of agadita on Shabbos, and the Gemara says that should be the same thing. V'holonitan likosev, isn't that something that really shouldn't be written down? Elokaven de lo efsher, rather the answer is, since there's no other possibility other than to write it down, eis lasos lashem eferet torsecha. Sometimes if you have a time, if the time calls for such a need, you're allowed to annul, you're allowed to nullify the Torah, so to speak. Hachanami here also, kaven de lo efsher, since there's no other possibility, eis lasos lashem eferet torsecha, we apply this pasuk of eis lasos lashem eferet torsecha. And Rashi explains, again, v'holonitan likasev, that you're not allowed to write down the svarim of agadita. Shum dvar gemara v'halacha v'agada kedamina l'kamon eila takosev v'chulu. This is basically Torah Shebaal Peh. You're not supposed to write down Torah Shebaal Peh. So why is it that we write it down? Kaven de lo efsha, since it's impossible. Milikasev shenismayet halei v'atorah mishtakeches. It's impossible not to write it down because the Torah would be forgotten otherwise. And we apply the pasuk of eis lasos la'Hashem and ba'eis lasos takana l'shem shamayim. If you have to make some kind of a takana for the sake sake of heaven, hey feru divrei Torah l'shah hatzricha, you're even allowed to nullify the divrei Torah because the moment calls for it. Hachanami came into lo efshar she'ein l'chol tzibor v'tzibor yecholas lichtov neviim shalom. Not every community is able to write full svarim of neviim, and so that's why we're going to say that it's okay if you have this sefer of haftorahs. And the Gemara continues, Boy minei Abaye me Rabba. Abaye asked Rabba the following question: Ma'u lichtov Megillah l'tinok l'Islamid bar? Are you allowed to write a small portion of the Torah for a child in order for the child to study from it? Tiboy l'man da'amar Torah Megillah nid. Now this is a question according to the one who says that the Torah was given in sections, meaning there was one section at a time was given to Moshe Rabbeinu, and then they were combined. Tiboy l'man da'amar Torah chasuma nid. It's also a question according to the one who says that the Torah was given complete, it was given whole, meaning that Moshe learned the entire Torah, and he learned it all Baal Peh. When it was all completed, then the entire Torah was written down. And the Gemara explains, Tiboy l'man da'amar Torah Megillah nitna. It's a question according to the one who says the Torah was given scroll by scroll. Kaven the Megillah nitna kosvin, since it was given scroll by scroll, so you can write down just the Megillah for a child to study from. Odilmer maybe Kaven the idbik. Once everything was combined, it's all considered like one unit. You can't split it up. And Tiboy l'man da'amar Torah chasuma nitna. It's also a question according to the one who says the Torah was given chasuma. Kaven the chasuma nitna, since the Torah was given complete, it was given as one whole unit. Ein kosvin, so you're not allowed to write one Megillah at a time. Odilmor maybe Kaven de lo efshar, since there's no other possibility, this is the only way that we're able to set things up for the child. Kasvinan, so maybe we are able to write it. Amar lei, so I said to him, Ein kosvin, you're not allowed to write it. Umatav, and what's the reason? Lefisha ein kosvin, because again, you're not allowed to write just a small portion of the Torah. And the Gemara continues, Eitzvei, we have a question from the following Mishnah, Afi osta tavla shel zav, she, this is referring to Hilni Hamalka, she made a golden tablet, sheparsha sota ksuva leh, and the parsha of sota was written on it. They would use that in order to write the parsha for sotas who would come to the Beis HaMikdash. Amar Rav Shimon ben Lakish mishum Rabbi Yana. So Rav Shimon ben Lakish says in the name of Rabbi Yana, he answers, because again it seems from here you're allowed to write just one section, and he answers Ba'alef Beis. That was written Ba'alef Beis, meaning that it was not written the full words, it was just written as Rashi Tevos. And the Gemara says, Eitzvei, we have a question from the following Brisa. Kishu kosev roe v'kosev mashakosev b'tabla. It says when he would write the Megillah scroll for a sota, he would look at this tablet and he would use that to write the scroll. So it sounds like the entire thing was written on the tavla. And so the Gemara answers, Ema kemasha kosev b'tabla. What it really means to say is he would read in accordance with what was written in the tablet, meaning to say it wasn't that the entire Megillah sota was written there. It was written like Rashi Tevos, but he would use that to remind himself the words of that are supposed to be written in a Megillah sota, and that's how the Kohen would write the scroll for the sota. Eisvei, and the Gemara asks again from a brisa, Kishu kosev roa b'tavla, the kosev masha kosev b'tavla, mahu kosev b'tavla, im shachav, im lo shachav. So in this brisa it's more elaborate. It says when he would write it, he would look at the tablet, and he would write that which was written in the tablet, and what was written in the tablet, im shachav, im lo shachav. It sounds like the exact psukim were written in the tavla. And the Gemara answers, Hachamai askin, and here what are we talking about? B'seirugin. We're talking about, yes, there were full words, but as Rashi over here says, B'seirugin tchilas ha-mikra hayakasav. It was just the beginning of every pasuk that was written, Teva Shlema, the full word would be written, Ulevasof Rashi Tevos, and then as it went on, it would just be Rashi Tevos. And the Gemara continues, Kitanoi, let us suggest that this is a machlokes tanoim in the following brisa. In Kosvin Megillah Latinok L'Islamid, but you're not allowed to write a scroll for a child to study from. Vim Daito Lahashlam Mutter, but if the intention is that you're going to complete the scroll eventually, then it's Mutter. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Rabbi Yehuda says, B'Bereshis Ador Hamabel, B'Toras Kohanim Ad Vayhi Bayom Hashmini. If you're in Sefer Bereshis, you are allowed to write a scroll until the Dor Hamabel. That's considered an independent section. Similarly, in Toras Kohanim and Sefer Vayikra, you can write until Vayhi Bayom Hashmini. That's considered an independent section. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rabbi Yochanan Mishum Rabbi Benah. Rabbi Yochanan says in the name of Rabbi Benah, Torah Megillah Nitna, the Torah was given scroll by scroll. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, Az amarti hinei basi b'Megillah sefer kasav alai. Then I said, behold, I am coming with this Megillah sefer, this scroll of the sefer that's written for me. Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish Omer, Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish says, no, Torah chasuma nitna. The Torah was given as a whole entity. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, Lakoach sefer haTorah hazos, take this sefer Torah. And the Gemara says, V'idach nami, now the other one also, Aksiv Lakoach. What does Rabbi Yochanan do with the pasuk of Lakoach? Ahu lebasar de idbik. So Rabbi Yochanan will say that just is talking about after all of the different sections were put together, after they were united. So then it's one Sefer Torah. V'idach nami, and the other one also, meaning Reish Lakish, Haksib Megillas Sefer Kasav. Doesn't the pasuk say Megillah Sefer? And to that the Gemara says Ahu dechol Torah kula ikri Megillah. Reish Lakish will respond. There it's referring actually to the entire Torah, and the entire Torah can be referred to as a Megillah. Tichsiv, as it's written in another pasuk, Vayomer Elai Ma Torah. He said to me, "What do you see?" V'omer ani roa Megillah. Often I said that I saw this Megillah, this scroll, and that's referring to the entire Torah. And the Gemara says, Inami, or you could answer L'chid Rabbi Levi. Then when we talk about Megillah Sefer Kasav Alai, that's some specific parshios are considered a separate Megillah, like Rabbi Levi says. The Yom Rabbi Levi, because Rabbi Levi says, Shmona parshios, there were 8 parshios, Nemru biyom shehukam bo ha-mishkan, that were said on the day that the Mishkan was put up. Elohein, and they are as follows, Parshas Kohanim, or Parshas Leviim, the section that talks about Kohanim, the section that talks about Leviim, or Parshas Tameim, or Parshas Shiluach Tameim, the section that talks about Tameim and the sending out of Tameim, or Parshas Achrei Mos, and the section of Achrei Mos. And Rashi explains, Inami l'chid Rabbi Levi, Ikroim Megillah Osan Ches Parshios Shehutzruchu Liyom Nemru V'Nichtevu V'Nimseru Bo Bayom. There were 8 parshios that specifically needed to be given on the day that the Mishkan was put up, and those are called Megillah, because those actually are independent Megillahs. They're independent sections. V'Nichtevu Kol Achas B'Megillah Levada. They were all written in their own scroll. Lefisha Muvdolos Urchoko Zumizu, because really they're separate, they're far away from each other in an actual Sefer Torah. Hilkach Kari L'Shar Nami Megillah, therefore everything is called Megillah, Mishum Dekeshachazar V'Shlima, because when Moshe finished up the entire Torah, Hutzrach Lichtov Mi Bereshis ad Parshas Kohanim, he had to write from the beginning of Sefer Bereshis until this Parshas Kohanim, Levad by itself, V'Dileg Parshas Kohanim Aksuva Kvar. Then he skipped the Parshas of the Kohanim because that was already written. So essentially, because of these 8 separate Megillahs, the entire thing really was written in sections. Similarly, V'Chasam Mi Parshas Kohanim ad Parshas Shiluach Tameim, he wrote from the Parshas Kohanim until the Parshas Shiluach Tameim, V'Chein Kulam, etc. And all of these parshios were parshios that needed to be written for the Mishkan, so that's why they needed to be written on the day that the Mishkan was put up, and they were written separately, they were written in advance. As we explain, we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Samech Amud Beis.